Welcome to CAD Lesson 3 with Ned Ferguson. Yesterday we went over the fillet command, and I'm just going to do that again once more. If I enter F for fillet, and I have a default radius because that's what I used yesterday, of 50 feet, I select these two entities. It fillets the two tangents with a radius of 50 feet. Now what if I want to go back to 0? I'm going to erase that arc. So I fill it again, and I want a radius of 0. I could enter the R option and then enter 0 as a radius and have it square these two entities off. But the quicker way of doing that is to enter the fillet command, then hold down the shift key, then select the two entities. And because you've held down the shift key, it will fillet that with a radius of 0. It returns the default back to 0 by holding that shift key now. So that's a handy little shortcut to know. So you can, next time you use a command, it will still have the default of 0. If I enter F again, you see the radius is now set back to 0. Another command that we haven't yet gone over is break. BR is a shortcut for that. It asks for you to select the entity to break. And you can select on the entity itself or even away from the entity, any 2 points, and it will break that entity. I'm going to undo. I'm going to do it again so you can see it. Select the entity, and it automatically uses that first point that you selected as a break point. Then now it's asking for a second break point. Click over here somewhere, and it breaks that entity. Same thing with an arc. So break and trim are somewhat related. I'm going to break here, second point here. It creates a break in that entity. Another good way to use the shift key is if I have a selection set, I'm going to draw a series of circles here. I'm going to draw one circle, and I'm going to copy. I'm going to copy the circle again and again, just so I've got a random set of objects. I'm going to take a few of these circles and select them. And turn them red. I want to do that by using my drop down box up here. The first box is the layer name. The second is the color, the entity color, which is generally by default set to by layer. I don't like to change the colors of entities habitually independently of their layer. It's best practice to keep the entity the same as the color that's set for that layer. If I want to change the color of something, I normally change its layer instead of changing the color. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn those 3 circles I selected red. This next box over here is the line type. You can change to any number of line types. I like to also keep that set by default to by layer. So now we have 3 red circles in the middle of this array of circles. If I use the erase command and I want to erase these circles, I can window them in, left click, right click, and erase. I'm going to undo that. Now if I select the erase command again, instead of selecting anything, I can now use P for previous, and it will select the entities that I have previously selected. So by selecting those entities previously, I built what is called a selection set, previous entities. So erase P, hit the space bar again, they all go away. I'm going to undo. Now what if I wanted to only erase the red circles? I can enter E, I can individually select them and erase them. Or I'm going to undo. There's a handy little tool that you can use. It's called a transparent command, but it's within the erase command. Erase, it doesn't give you the prompt down here in the command line, but you just have to know it's there. It's window polygon, and that's WP. Now it asks me for the first vertex of the polygon. I'm just going to select here, and it allows you to create an irregular polygon to build your selection. So I can then build it around those circles, right click, and select only the red entities. That can be very handy sometimes. It's good to know it's there. Now what if I am erasing and I select a bunch of entities, left click, I've got all those entities selected, but I say to myself, oops, I didn't want to select the red entities this time. I can hold down the Shift key, and this allows me to eliminate objects from the selection set. So now if I right click, after I've eliminated those, it only gets rid of the other circles. Undo. Next, let's go over the ortho mode. I'm going to draw a line here. You notice I can draw the line in any direction I want. If I hit the F8 key at the top of my keyboard, it locks in what's called the ortho mode, which means that it only allows you to draw lines on a north-south, east-west axis, or X and Y. You can only draw lines now at right angles to one another. If I trim that, now I've got kind of a simple figure. It looks like a house. So if you find yourself trying to draw a line and it doesn't let you draw it where you want, it does this. That means you've got ortho mode on. You need to hit the F8 key to turn it back off. Anytime you hit one of these F keys at the top of the keyboard, it's probably going to do something to change your drawing. If you hit one accidentally, you probably want to hit it again just to turn off whatever you turned on or whatever you changed to reverse it. This also works with the move command or the copy command or anything else that you're doing. So if I hit the F8 key again and I hit M for move, if I try to move it, it only allows me to move along the X and Y axis. I'll turn that back off. So I'm going to draw a rectangle again, just a random rectangle. I'm going to draw a line out here, skewed to it. And I'm going to demonstrate how the rotate and scale commands work. You can rotate any object you want. RO is the shortcut for rotate. It asks you to select the entities that you want to rotate. I can select both of these. Right click to end my selection set. And I can select any rotation point I want. I'll just select the corner of this rectangle, and it will rotate the entities about the point that you selected, the rotation point. Now, what if I want to rotate this rectangle parallel to this line? I'm going to enter the rotate command. Again, RO, select the square. I'm going to select the endpoint of it. And you notice it allows me to rotate that any direction I want. I can now click my middle mouse wheel and select parallel, select this line, then click over here. It would allow me to parallel it, like so. I'm going to undo that. I can do the same thing by moving the rectangle over to the line. So now I've got an intersection between these two entities. I'm going to enter the rotate command again. And now I can just rotate, use the other end of the line here to rotate it. Now the fact that I have this rectangle on the XY axis makes this easier. But what if it's skewed this way? Now I want to rotate what's more of a diamond shape and make it parallel to the line. Well, now when I select rotate, select this endpoint, I no longer have the cursor in line with one of the planes of this rectangle, as you can see. So how am I going to do that? That's where you use the base or reference angle. So I can enter R for reference angle, and it's also called the base angle. Select the endpoint, select a second point, and now it's allowing me to rotate along the plane of the rectangle like I was previously. And now I can do the same thing. I can go parallel to this line if it will let me. There it is. So practice that a few times. It's a little tricky to comprehend for some people. I'm going to try it again. Select this. Reference or base angle, same thing. If you want to look down at the command line, if I enter B for base, it's the same thing as R for reference. First point, second point, then it allows me to rotate, like so. So what if I want to scale this rectangle up to where the north plane of it is the same length as this line that we're looking at? I can move this entity over to the line. I can rotate back to the line using my reference or base angle. And let it snap to the mid or end point. Doesn't matter. Now it's parallel. Okay, so now I want this rectangle to be the same size. The side of that rectangle will be the same size as the line, same length. I'm going to use the scale command, which is SC. Select the object to scale. Select the endpoint, and I'm going to enter R for reference again. 2 points that I want to scale are here and here. Then it lets me pick the third point to scale to. So there's my third point. Now they're the same length. Moving in surveying, moving an entity like this is also known as translating. We can do that mathematically in our data collector in the field. So that's how you rotate and scale. If you're doing it in the field, it's called translate, rotate, and scale. So I'm going to move. That's translate, rotate, scale. And I'll just scale it down to half the size of the line this time. Like so. Now, what if I want this rectangle? I'm going to hit the F8 key. I'm rotating now. I can rotate it back to the x-axis by hitting the F8 key. What if I want this to be separate entities instead of one entity together? Or, as we drew a polyline before, I'll just draw a polyline here. Arcs and some lines. I'm going to close it. What if I would like those to be disassociated? I'm going to use the explode command. You can type it in, but over here on the edit tab on what's called the palettes, I like to use this. We have many of the same commands that we've used previously. If we go to draw, you've got line, 2D line, etc., 3D line. You can drill down through here and find all kinds of commands. These palettes can be edited to include different commands. You can rearrange the palette by dragging a command up or down if you don't like where it is. But I'm going to go to the Edit tab and I'm going to hit Explode. Then it asks you to select the entities to explode. Right click when you're done. And now these entities are all dissociated. So what if I want to now rejoin them? I can use the pedit command. And when you explode a polyline, it reverts to lines and arcs. I can list these entities. LI is the list command, and it queries entities. You can select them, and it tells you the information about the entity. And you notice the entity type right here is line. I can do the same thing with the arc list, and it tells me the entity type is an arc. I'll hit the X here to close this window. Now I can use the pedit command as we did yesterday. The shortcut is P for that. Select the polyline to edit. Because it's no longer a polyline, it's a simple line. It asks, do you want to turn it into a polyline? You say yes. Now I can hit J for join, and I can select all those, right click. It tells me there were 10 entities in the set, and it tells me there were 9 segments joined into the polyline. Right click and I'm done. Now it's back to being a polyline. Same thing with this rectangle. PE, select the polyline to edit. You got to have one first. Turn it into one, yes. J for join. Select all the entities, right click, it joins them back together. I'm going to explode them again. There's a little tool up at the top of the screen right here. It says join nearest. This does the same thing. If I click on that, it gives me a little menu. Now, in this case, when I use the pedit command, it has to be perfectly joined, but this one is supposed to give you a little bit of tolerance. 0.03 feet is what it's currently set to. So if the lines are within that range, it is supposed to extend them till they join. Fill it with radius 0. Now you notice there are some other options here. Convert lines and arcs to polylines. So you don't have to answer the question anymore. Join only identical line types. That's fine. This is a continuous line type. Join only identical layers. Normally that's fine. Sometimes I like to toggle that off. So if I want to join entities that are on different layers, it will do it. So you just click OK. I can window all those and it joins them. So again, explode, explode, join nearest, accept the defaults, window all of them, and now it joins them back together. Now let's go over layers for a moment. As you've noticed before, you've got a pull down that shows you the layers. You can scroll. If I select any of these layers, this is our default set of layers. I can select any of those and it will change the current layer to the one I select. So let's go over some of these layers for a moment. We have different functions for each layer. 0 is a required layer to be in all drawings. We generally avoid putting entities on the 0 layer. It's a default CAD layer. The 0 layer has a specific function in regards to creating blocks and things. We're not going to go over that right now, but we like to avoid putting objects on layer 0 for the most part. This 0 hide. These are entities that I want to hide from the drawing, not plot, not include in the current data that we're using and things. D plots, things like that, sometimes I'll put there just to get them out of sight and not plot them, but I want to save them for later for some reason. Stamps layer. These are text stamps that go on the face of a plat. 0 orthophoto. We use that for our drone photography. Accessory layer. These are items related to a building like canopies, porches, decks, things like that. A building or a house, we usually put those on the accessory layer, accessories to a building. The adjoin text layer, we use this as our default text layer. And this is where we put our general text. The adjoiners layer is one that is created by Carlson itself. When you use one of their tools, it automatically puts text on that layer. We'll go over that layer. This is a similar function here. We won't worry about that one. I'll just address the important ones here. I may skip some of these, but area text, when you create an area of a polygon or polyline, I can go up here to area by interior point, click the middle of it. It tells me that's 32 acres within that polyline figure we created. If I left click on it, it tells you what layer it's on. Area text up there. I'm going to escape to deselect it, and it goes back to what I had selected as the default layer. I'm going to put it, our current layer, back to the join text. Break lines are for surfaces. Bearing text is for putting, that's another layer that's automatically created by the CAD program. If I label a bearing on a line, it puts it on the bearing text layer automatically. These are related to contours and surfaces. Center line is a center line of road. Boundary is what we like to put our subject boundary lines on, the parcel that we are working on. Coordinate text, these are other, that's another function. These others are automatically created by the CAD program. Entities are placed on them automatically. We don't have to worry about those too much. Fence. If I draw a polyline on the fence layer, it puts these little X's on there. That's a fence symbol. Old lot lines are used for track lines or lines that are being eliminated. Hidden line, it creates a dash line. We use those for various purposes. I like to make my gravel driveways dashed. It'll usually go on that line, that layer. Setbacks are for building setbacks. Prop lines. Prop lines layer is for adjoining property lines. You've got your main boundary line. Let's say this were a parcel boundary, and I put it on the boundary layer. And I've got adjoining parcels and property owners that come off of it. We always put those adjoining owners on the prop lines layer. They're called departing lines, departing property lines. These are utility layers, gas, overhead utility, telephone, sewer, sanitary sewer is what SS stands for, storm sewer, underground phone, underground electric, water. General utility easement layer is on utility. X down here stands for existing. So any existing concrete like curbs, sidewalks, driveways, we put on that layer. Retaining walls, typically. Paving would be the edge of an asphalt road. It goes on the X paving layer, or driveways, asphalt driveways, anything that's paved. Riprap is a like you installed back at the back of our building. It's rock that is intended to mitigate drainage. It's called a riprap. Striping is parking lot striping, road striping, center lines of roads, dashed lines and double lane roads and things like that. So I'm going to pause here, and we will pick it up in the next lesson.